What up? What up? Hope you guys are having a phenomenal week on purpose. Be intentional about it. Boy, Coach White checking in with you guys. And thank you for joining Coach Class with Coach. We're here every Wednesday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Definitely looking forward to another good segment today while this computer is bugging out. On TikTok, what up? What up? Facebook, what up? What up? IG, what up? YouTube, what up? We here by God's grace. All right, so let's get into these announcements. All right, so again, every week we promote the gallery that tells your story on YouTube. Check out the channel. If you like the content, like it. If you wish to subscribe, please subscribe. But I'm more interested in getting your feedback on the content. So check it out when you get a chance and give me some feedback. You can even send me a DM if you like. All right. Also, we always are promoting the books that we have for sale. Aiden's Journey, which comprises of The Invisible Marriage and Forsaking All Others. Really dope Christian fiction novels. Check those out as well. I would love your feedback. And you can purchase those on Amazon or Kindle. All right. Also, I did, and it didn't is also available on Amazon and Kindle for purchase. So check it out. Give me some feedback. I would really appreciate it. Now, I did, and it didn't is not a part of Aiden's journey per se, but I had a really good opportunity to complete this project with some other dope Christian fiction authors. Shout out to Rock. Shout out to Anastasia and Taisha. Um, they did an awesome job on this project, and we just came together, man, and it was a really good collaboration. So check it out. I did, and it didn't. And if you think you know what the book is about, then you probably know based off the title, right? So yeah, check it out and give me some feedback. Also, um, I'd be remiss if I didn't speak about my wife's really dope uh, poetic novel on her experiences, her past experiences with domestic violence. It is called 50 Shades of She. That is also available on Amazon. So check it out. Give us some feedback. All right. What else we have? Bible study every Sunday, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are walking very slowly, verse by verse, through the book of Hebrews. We are in Hebrews chapter 7 at around verses 12 or so. Um, yeah, we've been on this Hebrews journey since last year. In fact, it'll be a year coming up in a couple weeks that we've been in Hebrews, man. So we are on a quest to know what the Bible means by what it says. So check it out, man. Every Sunday we're here, eight. Let's say 8 o'clock. Goodness gracious on the rock. We're here every Sunday from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. And we also have merchandise for sale. The gallery that tells your story t-shirts are for sale. John 8 and 24 t-shirts are for sale. And self-love over self-destruction t-shirts are for sale. So if you guys are interested, you can send me a DM. Um, or you can call me directly at 443-785-7010. Or you can shoot me a text, say, hey, coach, whatever. Like what you're doing, I don't like what you're doing, or, I'm interested in purchasing a t shirt, or I have some feedback on your books, whatever. You can send me a text at 443-762-6010. All right. So let's get right into this. I'm going to share my screen. I have my brother on the screen, my brother from the same mother. What's going on, champion? How you feeling?
What's up, bro? You feel? Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can see you and I can hear you clear.
I'm good, bro. Getting in from that
Awesome.
gym, man.
How, how's the week treating
I've been chill. I had a little mama. Just dropped her off and try to get to the gym before it get too late.
you? Gotcha.
Just got back in.
Okay. Cool enough. All right, man. You right on time. I'm gonna share my screen and we're gonna look at the quote of the day. It's pretty simple to talk it through. All right. Share. Let's go. All right, here we go. Let me get rid of this tab right here. All right. It's very simple. Those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. I love it. I love the simplicity of this quote of the day. This is by George Bernard Shaw. Those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. Now, as practical as that sounds, I think that this is something that a lot of us wrestle with. Not just knowing that if I can't change my mind, I can't change anything, but the practical part of it. So when your behavior patterns are the same over and over and over again, this quote is for you, especially people who want to change or people who say they want to change. If you cannot change your mind, that means you cannot change how you think, what you think, and you can't change your self talk. And remember, I said this in prior lessons, your self talk has to be the superhero for your thoughts and your feelings. And if your self talk is not redirecting your thoughts and your feelings, you are in a lose lose situation. Any feedback, brother?
And I like that quote. Say you're willing to change your mind, you can change your life. So um, I always say that. So
And
you gotta be
we,
willing
we
to change your mind, change your perspective on things.
it's very important that we get this, that everybody gets this, especially the people that we coach. If you cannot change your mind, you cannot change anything. So we'll go from wanting to change something But we don't necessarily want to change the way we think, which is illogical because nothing changes unless something changes.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. So that is the quote of the day. Those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. Shout out to George Bernard Shaw. All right. Uh, let's go back to the article. Stop sharing for a second. Let's go back to the article from last week. It's called Disarming Your Buttons, and I'll give you a quick introduction. All right. This is by Dr. Leon Seltzer. And, you know, I'm a big fan of psychology today. If you guys, man, listen, psychology today has almost every topic that you could want to talk about in coaching, or even if you're a client. Psychology today is something that I would encourage you guys to look at regularly, especially if you're going through something. So again, this is called Disarming Your Buttons. This is part 2. We covered part 1 last week, and we covered a good portion of part 2 as well. All right, so this particular part of the article, the emphasis is on diffusing past disturbances in order to deactivate any present day, what we call buttons. So the word buttons comes from the phrase allowing people to push your buttons or saying that people are pushing your buttons and things of that nature, right? We have to disarm those buttons because when we allow people to push the buttons, then we surrender the control to the people pressing the buttons. So we want to be responsible and cognizant in this quest to love ourselves more and to know ourselves more. We have to be cognizant of what those buttons are. So when you get further down in the article, round about paragraph 4, he gets into the very direct question here, which is, so what exactly is it that triggers your buttons? And just how do you determine what causes you to become provoked? In other words, what you can't help but react to as an affront, annoyance, indignity, or some type of insult. So I'm going to share my whiteboard for a minute. Let me stop here. We're going to come back to the article. I think this is my first whiteboard. Is this it? No, maybe this. Yep, here we go. All right, let me share this whiteboard. All right. So what exactly is it that triggers your buttons? So when you think about people pressing your buttons, for you, Jamar, and for you, what are your buttons? So a couple of things that I took from the article and I added a few things. He says, does this hot button relate to being criticized? The question that I have is, how do you respond when you're being criticized? Or the second one that I noted was disagreements. How do you respond when people don't agree with your position, don't agree with what you're saying? How do you respond? How do you respond when you're being ignored? How do you respond when you're being made to feel weak, especially from my brothers? How do you respond to that? How do you respond when you're being unappreciated? When you go all out and they don't appreciate all the things that you do, how do you respond to that? How do you respond when you're being taken advantage of? How do you respond when you're expected? How do you respond when you're being falsely accused? Here's a big one, two of them in a row. How do you respond when you're being abandoned? How about rejection? How do you respond when you're being rejected? How do you respond when you're being perceived as being dishonest? Those were some things that I gathered from the article. So what we do is, in coaching, we look at these questions because we want you to know exactly what your triggers are and what the buttons are. And you can, to a degree, you can look at them as one and the same, triggers and buttons, right? So you want to know what your triggers are. And in fact, let me go further to say this is mature for you to know what your triggers are as an adult. If we are adults and we don't know what our triggers are, that is a problem. That is childlike. That is respectfully immature of us if we don't know or make strides to learn what our triggers are. We'll just be impulsive, we'll be erratic, we'll just fly off the handle. So what these questions do, it causes some self-evaluation, some introspection. So you can figure out what your triggers are. So what we do is, and I'm gonna go to the other whiteboard real quick. All right, let me share. Check this out. This is what we do in coaching. So this is the deal, right? What you do is you answer the question, what triggers your buttons? So let's assume that being abandoned is something that's a trigger for you, right? And what you want to do is, in your journals, you want to list the times when you were abandoned, past to present. And that's a little harder for people. So we can start from present and we can go back to the past. If you love your, if you are a student of self-improvement, then this activity is for you. I want you to spend time with yourself based off of what your triggers are. And I'm just using being abandoned as an example. And you want to list the times that you recall that you were abandoned. If it's helpful, if it's better for you to do it from the present and go back to the past, then you can do it that way. But you could also reverse it. You can start from the past and you can lead up to the present. The next question would be, how did you respond when you were abandoned? And you're going to literally write out how you responded when you were abandoned. And then you're going to also write who you were abandoned by, because that matters too. Because the next part of the activity is going to be to look at your patterns and identify your behavior patterns when you're triggered. What do you do when you're triggered? How do you respond when you're triggered? And you're going to write them all out. And ladies and gentlemen, this is part of your self-work. If you want to improve, this activity is for you. So when you're doing this exercise, we start with the triggers, right? Identify your triggers in the journal. You can go from your present triggers. Let's say you just blew up on somebody a couple of days ago. When you are emotional, it's time to remove yourself. It's time to start doing some work. And then you're going to literally write out what happened. Almost like an incident report. First, this happened first. This happened second. This happened third. This happened fourth. And you literally, boom, boom, boom. You write all those things out in chronology. After you do that, and be sure to write how you responded to them, to each point. Then you want to go back to the past. And you want to link somehow, in this example, when you were abandoned in the present to the times when you were abandoned in the past, and really sit back and look at all of your behavior patterns. Even leading up to the abandonment. Write out your incident report. This happened. She or he said this. He or she didn't say this. So on and so forth. Boom, 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 in chronology. And I can guarantee you, you will become much more self-aware the more you practice these exercises. And the goal is not just to be able to identify your behavior patterns. The goal is to be able to position yourself to become more proactive. When you see scenarios and situations that are familiar, that, in this example, where abandonment can take place, these exercises will teach you how to identify it before it starts so that you can begin with the appropriate self-talk in the event that your emotions and your thoughts go in the wrong direction. But guess what? All of this means nothing if you don't do it. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. So, what are your triggers, good brother? Give me one or two.
I was sitting here, think about them. Try to practice, like, I think I told you about a guy I follow, this guy named OG. He dope. I gotta send you his stuff. He's a very dope.
Yeah.
He's so dope. But he said something. I used to watch him all the time. And he said something about when you realize he's talking about triggers too. He's like buttons. He's like, oh, people pushing your buttons. He's like, when you realize you don't have no buttons, that's when you made it. Like, I gotta send it to you. So ever since then, I always try to practice that. Like, especially now, I'm dealing with some of my past, uh, my past little situation. Kind of helped me out a lot with, like, um, I be telling myself I don't have no buttons. You get what I'm saying? Like, like not letting stuff bother me. So I'm going to ask you too about the triggers when you said like, did you consider that? Like you had the questions like being abandoned. You consider that being a trigger? You get what I'm saying? If I'm saying that right, you consider that like a button being
Yeah.
abandoned is a button being pushed. You get what I'm saying? You
Yes.
do.
Yes.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
um, trigger.
Well, I mean, I don't want you to overthink either. Like I said in prior classes, all you gotta do is think about
Oh, it's like
any relationship that you were in
uh,
with whatever young lady, and think about the times when you were pissed off. Because I always say that relationships expose, especially if you're in the long term, it exposes the areas that we need to work on.
uh,
That's when your buttons are really pushed.
uh,
So what is it, without throwing names out there, that you could think about in that relationship dynamic where your buttons were
oh,
pushed?
ah, um, um, work or on you.
You kind of breaking up, brother.
No, hear me now. Hear me now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so yeah,
Yep.
projecting, or I guess like one of the big triggers was yeah, like lying. I would say lying.
You said
Yeah,
lying.
well, I'm just thinking about past relationship, like lying, making up things, saying projecting, putting stuff um that maybe I did not, or I definitely didn't do, and just saying that lying, saying I did it. That was a big little. That used to take me.
Oh, so you're saying your trigger was when somebody
Yeah,
accused
accusing.
you of
Yeah,
lying,
let me say that.
being
Let me
dishonest.
switch it up. Yeah, accusing. Um,
Okay.
yeah, accusing.
So let's go through this exercise real quick. Just so we give the people a live example of what it would look like from a coach to a client. Let me share my screen here. All
This
right.
week 11.
This one. And your screen looks better, by the way you have your phone turned. So, not assuming, you said when someone accuses you of being dishonest, right?
Yeah,
So, what you would do in this journal activity, or what your clients would do, is they would write that out. They would identify that trigger, right? Then they would list the times when people made them or presented in a way as if they were being dishonest. They would start with the most recent experience and they would go back to the past archives so they can determine when that happened as early as they can remember. And then they will write out how they responded to all of those individuals who presented as if they were being dishonest. So for you, and this requires a lot of thought. So, I don't want you to necessarily, uh, go too far back. But I do want to know how do you respond when somebody presents something to you in a way where they are They perceive that you're being dishonest. How do you respond?
How have I responded? Oh,
Yes.
previous times I responded, just defending myself.
And how did that look? Talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old.
That previous, like going basically, no, I didn't, or going back and forth. Um, yeah, going and that dynamic was going back and forth basically because it wasn't getting heard. So it was end up going back and forth. I know I didn't this that. So just like defending myself.
Okay. And I assume your tone shifted,
Yeah.
tone of
Hmm.
voice shifted. Okay. Uh, I assume that you were animated in your response.
Yeah. Previous times. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to think what else in terms of behavioral responses might have been present. I'm thinking what that person or people may have said if they were holding a mirror up to you. Is there anything else in terms of your behavioral responses that we missed apart from animated reactions, uh, projected voice? Uh, you mentioned going back and forth, so it's a you're competing for um, how can I say this? You painted a picture for me when you said you're going back and forth, so nobody's
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah.
So it's just shouting over top of each
Yeah.
other.
Nobody. Yeah. That's how I used to be. Yeah. For
Okay,
sure.
okay, gotcha. Okay, all right. So what you would do is to take your clients through this activity, and then you would have them to write out who they were abandoned by, right? Uh, because what we want to do through this activity, one of the main goals is to determine or to help the client look at their behavior patterns in every incident. And what they'll probably see, hence behavior pattern, they'll probably see the same things, the same types of responses, which enables them to see it's not necessarily about the person that they're being triggered by. It's more about their lack of self control and how they respond. And we said this, I think, the last class. Uh, what we don't want to do is surrender our power to anybody. We hold the cards. And when we allow people to control our emotions, it's like giving a person a key and say, here, I know I was granted this authority, but here, I'm going to give it to you. You can have it. And that's what kids do. That's childlike. We got to be more mature and set better examples as coaches, as just adults. And we have to make sure that when we're doing this assignment, we can clearly see and identify when we're being immature and when we have given another person the keys to our emotions. And just for the sake of consideration, how silly does that really sound? That we as adults would surrender our emotional keys to somebody else to control. I mean, just to even say that to me is troubling. It's troubling. We can't do that. We can no longer do that. the inner child in us has to be put in its place by the adult in us. And we have to tell the inner child to have a seat. I can handle it. But as soon as we allow the inner child to be in the forefront and sit the adult down, then we got problems. Because the child doesn't know how to handle their emotions. Does that make sense?
For sure. That's why I meant like by what he said when you realize you don't have no buttons, because like I refuse to give my power up now for that situation. I refuse to, bro. Like what? I'm about to fuss, yell, scream. Refuse to give my power up. It's like
Yeah.
I thrive on that now. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
thrive on it. I was like, yeah, you acting that way, I'm gonna go the opposite way. Cause I know it's only within myself. So how I
Yeah.
react says everything about who I am, not about who you are. So I'm gonna react with emotional intelligence now. You know what I'm saying? Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
because you know what I mean. And I thrive on that now. It makes my heart smile when I'm, you know what I mean. When I'm done, and I'm like, yeah, I did that. No back and forth. No, you ain't getting my heart rate up. My heart rate used to go up. All that. Now it's
Right.
like, cool.
Yeah.
Do what you do.
Yeah, man.
Do what you
Yeah,
want to
we,
do.
we, we can no longer be
No,
impulsive, brother. That's not an option.
and I can say that
That's not an option.
that past situation taught me a lot, man. Taught me a lot.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm very
Yeah.
grateful for it.
Yes, sir. Love it, love it, love it. All right, let's get back to the article, man. Let me just read a couple key points here. All right. Let me share it. Okay. So again, he says, so what exactly is it that triggers your buttons, right? So in your journal, you write down all of these questions to challenge yourself as you look in your mirror. And you think about all these scenarios, right? Of what these hot buttons relate to. And then he says, consider making as comprehensive a list as possible of all the different things you can think of that have goaded you into seeing red in the past, that triggered you to instantly defend yourself or attack the person who presumably intended to hurt you, or as it were, slam the door and act out your distress by angrily disengaging from your seeming provocateur entirely. Remember, it's safe to assume that anything powerful enough to have pushed your buttons previously is quite likely to push them again. By now, it's been said countless times that nothing predicts the future better than the past, and the psychological dynamic of button pushing hardly represents an exception to this familiar adage. Um, did I miss? I wanted to read something else popped out in this article for me. Oh yeah, check this out. He says, so catalog everything you can think of that incited you in times past and definitely consider as possibilities the extensive checklist of indignities inventoried above. Unquestionably, you'll find a pattern, whether it's a sensitivity to being criticized, to feeling demeaned or disrespected, to experiencing the other person as devaluing your viewpoint, or even to feeling utterly abandoned or rejected. If you're like most of us, you'll probably discover that you've got considerably more than a single button susceptible to external provocations. And if you're particularly insecure, this is what stood out the most to me. If you're particularly insecure, let me talk to my insecure people. You may find that you have more vulnerability buttons or soft spots that frankly can easily be enumerated. People characterized by others as thin skinned may well have the most buttons of all. If you are an insecure person, and let me say this by saying most people that are insecure will not come out and say that they're insecure. So let me frame that differently. As a good book will say, by the mouth of two or three witnesses, every word may be established. So if two or more people have said that you are insecure, then you're probably insecure. And the article to the article's point, insecure people have innumerable buttons or triggers. So if you are insecure, you have a lot of work to do. More so than people, and we have to do work, those of us who are secure. We got to do work. But you got to do the double the work if you're insecure. Talk to me, man. Have you ever met? Sure, you have. Insecure people, and what is that like? Being around or being connected to somebody in some way, shape, form, or fashion that is insecure. What is your experience? What has your experiences been with insecure individuals?
Um, it can be draining, energy wise.
Yeah,
Can be draining. Um, because like it's a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of with that insecurity comes a lot of projecting. So they projected out of that insecurities onto um, others. So if you're
yeah,
dealing with that type of person, it's a lot of projecting. So it can be draining if you don't know who you are, um,
yeah,
and you're not secure within yourself. It can be draining. But once you realize that person is insecure, it's just like beyond this personal reason wise, I prefer not to even be around it. You
yeah,
know, you know what I mean? Like I prefer not to even be around it because it's like it's a lot of it's a lot of projecting. There's no self. There's no looking within themselves.
yeah,
Everything is outside. So they're looking outside for their answers, looking outside for everything instead of looking within
mhm,
themselves. So in
yeah,
turn, they project on others.
yep.
So
Insecure people need 10 times the amount of validation
hmm
from
a lot of victim,
people
it's like a
around.
victim mentality too comes with that.
Yeah,
A lot of
and that's tough. It's tough, man. So you definitely hit the nail on the head there. You know, they need constant reassurance, they need constant validation, and everything is external, nothing internal.
uh,
Uh, so yeah, so all that to say, insecure people have a lot more buttons or triggers than the person who's secure. So got to be mindful of that. All right, so we're gonna move on to part three of this article. Can you still see my screen?
yeah, I can see it.
Okay. All right. Let's see where we go from here. Part 2. So he begins the article by giving a synopsis of part 1 and part 2, right? Um, let's look at, let's pick up from here. I'm perusing for a minute. All right. So he says, as I noted earlier in part 2 of this post, anything that's bothering you in the past is likely to bother you in the future, unless, that is, you've come to view it differently. And in a way, much less likely to incite you. So, for instance, if you view your spouse's tardiness as a sign of their not much caring about you, then their lack of punctuality is virtually guaranteed to push your buttons. However, if you begin to understand your partner as simply having an enormous problem with time management, realizing that they're late with others quite as much as with yourself, and also that their inability to be ready on time has nothing to do with their actual caring for you, which they may have clearly demonstrated in multiple ways, then with such a revised perception, their chronic tardiness is far less likely to upset you. And that makes perfect sense. Seeing their personality flaw as meaning something quite different from what you previously assumed, you're likely to cut them considerably more slack. And with practice, you might even begin to smile at their being so punctuality challenged now that you're able to see it more charitably as a personal shortcoming rather than a personal affront. So it's about changing your perception so that your buttons aren't pushed or so that you aren't triggered. I know I can say that was one for me as well. Like, I try to be very punctual. If something starts at 5, I need to be there at 4:45, comfortably. And I don't want to be racing to get somewhere because I drive slow as it is. So that was a big one for me as well. If I'm with somebody and we got to be there at a certain time, uh, and I'm ready, dressed and ready in the car's on, uh, and I'm ready to go because in my mind, I already mapped out how long it takes to get there. And then I included traffic just in case. And if the person is taking their time and dragging their feet, yeah, in the past, I'd be pretty pissed off. But I learned that was an opportunity for my growth. So instead of taking it personal, I changed my perception of it. Because guess what? I hold the cards. I am responsible for my emotions. And that's the place where we got to get at if we're not there. And if you're coaching, you want to coach your clients up to get to that point. Any thoughts on that? Anything you want to share?
No, I 100% agree with you. Like, you start out looking at things a little differently. Um, it, it, it it's makes it just, I say, frees your soul when you start looking at it a little different. It's like you got to, though, because it says some things you can't control. So you gotta accept the things you can't control. When you try to control everything, that's when you start getting, or expect it. I say stop expecting, start accepting.
Yeah.
We are being expecting some things and expecting somebody to be as on time as you are, and you get disappointed when they're not.
Right.
But you know what I mean? It's like, nah, they move how they move. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's that simple. Um,
Yeah.
so you got two options there. Even start getting ready a lot earlier, you know, with your partner. Make sure they start getting ready a lot earlier. Um, or not be with that partner. You know what I mean? You only got a couple options there. Um,
Yeah.
and just vocalizing that, speaking that, like, hey, that's what we're gonna, if something start at 8, maybe you have to start tell them, hey, you guys just start getting ready around 5, so we
Yeah.
can make sure we there. But
Yeah.
when you realize you can't control it, you take some of that stress off. And you're like, all right,
Absolutely.
that's how they get down. They ain't gonna move how I would move. So
Yeah. And it's not fair for us to impose our expectations on other people anyway. You know, that's just not cool. And we set ourselves up for disappointment every time we do it. All right. All right, let me share one more piece and we're gonna get out of here. I think this is a really important point to share. So the doctor says this. He says there's another cognitive technique known as covert rehearsal. Covert rehearsal, which is about mentally, listen to this, practicing for a possibly difficult encounter by rehearsing it in your head. Covert rehearsal. Let me read that again.
mhm.
Mentally, covert rehearsal is mentally practicing for a possibly difficult encounter by rehearsing it into your head over and over again. In your mind's eye, as it were, you act out how you like it to go. Such an approach only works, of course, if you possess the insight, emotional poise, and interpersonal skills to make it work. But if in fact you've learned from your past mistakes and additionally have acquired the ability to approach the conflict or potential conflict differently, it can be invaluable to mentally rehearse how you might handle the current situation so as to maximize the chances of a positive outcome. Man, that's powerful. So, look, mental rehearsal is something that we can do to proactively prepare for situations that will trigger us and take us down a path that we don't want to go, by which we allow the inner child to stand up and the adult to sit down. And that's one of the things, as we discussed the journal activity, we want to actually write that out. Once we write out what our triggers are, we write out who triggered us. We go from the present experience back to the past experiences, and we identify patterns. Now we got to change our perspectives, look at it differently, and we got to do the covert rehearsal so that we're more proactive in our approach to situations that may trigger us. I like that, man. I really like that. I like that method. I think it makes a lot of sense. Um, I'm gonna read this last paragraph and get out of here. He says, if you think about it, it's only good sense to recall a previous confrontation that turned out badly, and after replaying what you remember about what was said leading up to the stalemate, or worse, picture how you might handle the present and similar situation differently. How, for instance, this time you can refrain from taking the bait or exaggerating the importance of some slip up or perceiving as just awful the other person's insensitivity or assuming that their intentions toward you must be malignant or that you're obligated to defend yourself against any and all criticism, right? TikTok giving me a warning. All right, we're going to wrap it up. I regularly suggest to clients that when their buttons are in danger of being pushed, the best thing they can do in the moment is simply nothing. They only need to be aware, hint, hint, self awareness, that they're in imminent danger of losing it, and that if they don't hold their fire, they'll only be adding more fuel to the potentially fiery situation. What's really called for in such a situation is to take a deep breath and calm themselves down, and then, and only then, respond to the situation as strategically as possible. All right. So that was really good, man. We're gonna stop right there. Any questions, comments, feedback, or thoughts before we close out?
That was another banger, bro. Another one.
Yeah, praise God, man. Thanks for checking in, good brother.
Yeah.
And thank you for being part of it, man. I really appreciate you. Let's grow together.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna shut down TikTok. Zoe, salute. Thanks for checking in. Sarah, salute. Bernadette, salute. Carla, salute. Thanks for checking in. G Man, thanks for checking in. Gidget, Prince, salute. Bella, salute. Marquis, salute. Adnan, salute. Thanks for checking in. Man, thank you for all of you guys for checking in. I really appreciate it. Lord willing, to see you guys next week. Peace. All right, good brother. I'm gonna shut it down.
Is that the same? You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
That's the same. The link you send me. That's the same link for everyone, or you got to change it?
No, it changes every time.
Oh,
Yeah, it changes